we'll use this as a guide, and then I'll go back over here, show you a typical site plan that I did before. I'll leave this open and then I'll go ahead and get started with the new drawing file. And if I go back to the notes, let me just take it back out this way a second. You'll see what I'm talking about, where we're going to create the 2D plan, then we'll xref the X plan on there, drop in some trees as blocks, and then I'll let you decide where to place the building, but there are going to be some requirements. You just need to stay 5 feet away from the north and south side, and then at least 20 feet away from the east and west side. We'll get into that a little bit. And then those are the layers that we're going to use. Let me go back to AutoCAD now, and I will go ahead and start a new drawing. I'll come over here and click Start. So from here, I'd like to click on the drop down because I do want to start with an AutoCAD template. If you don't see it listed there, again, click on Browse Templates. But because I do see it here, I'm going to go ahead and click on it. What I'm going to do now is format my units. And this is something that we've been doing with every single AutoCAD drawing. And it's a good habit to learn. And just know that you're not always going to start new drawing files. I just want to make sure that you understand why we're formatting the units. In the future, at some point, when you do start a brand new drawing file, you go ahead and set them up right. But just know that a lot of drawings exist in AutoCAD, and we basically take drawings that we've already drawn before and we do a save as. So the units have already been formatted. You're not going to be doing this every single time. You're dealing with existing drawing files a lot of times. Formatted my length and my angle. I now click OK. And then go ahead and save the drawing. So I usually like to type save as and then enter. But today I'll just come up here to the application button, click on it, hover where it says save as, and then click on drawing. And I'm going to look for my folder. And I'm going to place my drawing file here. And as we've been doing before, first initial, last name, this one is going to be called XSite. And the reason for that is because we're going to externally reference this site to another drawing file. So again, anything with an X in front of it means that it's going to be externally referenced somewhere else. So I'll go ahead and click Save now. And then as a personal preference, I turn off the grid. You do not have to. That's just my choice. Now I'm going to zoom out a bit, as I've done before, and then pan this. And I'm already starting to visualize the site. And it's going to be running the length of my screen here. That's why I position the UCS icon at that location. I'll probably have to zoom out a little bit more later, but this is where I start. Now I need to construct the layers. So I'll go into the Layer Properties Manager. Click on the new icon here to create a new layer. And this will be a site and then property. And the color for that is going to be color number 6, which is magenta. And then I click OK. The next layer and the color for that will be green. It's going to print relatively lighter than the magenta color. Click OK. Next layer to put in. So I'll click on New Layer. And this one's simply a site. A stands for architectural layer. And then I'm being descriptive here in terms of the site. And I'll make that color 2, yellow, and then click OK. So my layers have been constructed, and I'd like to begin drawing my site. And there's my point of origin. I am going to draw basically 4 lines. And I'm going to construct a rectangle, and it's going to be 125 feet in length and 40 feet deep. I'm going to draw the lines that represent the property. So I'll make that my current layer. And now I'll start drawing my lines. I will simply type L and then use my enter key or my space bar. Either one allows me to start drawing that line. Specify the first point. It's going to be at 0, 0. That's my origin. And I enter. I'm going to turn ortho on. And I'm going to draw this line. And you can see I did not zoom out far enough. And that's all right. I'll go ahead and draw this line and make it 125 feet in length. So I'll type 125 feet and then enter. The line is completely off the screen, so it's better for me now to simply enter. That terminates the command. And what I'll do now to make sure that I can see the entire line, instead of trying to zoom out with my wheel mouse, I'll simply type Z, enter, E, enter. So that's zoom extents. And now I can zoom out a little bit more like this. So to continue, I'll look at my example. 125 by 40. If I wanted to, I could take this line and copy it 40 feet up. I could take the line and offset it 40 feet up, or I can simply continue to draw lines and finish that out. There is no right or wrong, whatever is the most effective and most efficient. I said I was going to draw the 4 lines, and that's what I'll do. But you're more than welcome to copy, offset, whatever other commands you'd like to use. More than welcome to do so. I'm going to type L and enter. And it wants me to specify the first point. And I believe if I enter right now, it picks up where it left off. I didn't have to do anything. One more time. Let me tap the escape key. I will type L, enter. To begin that first point at the same location where I ended the last line, I simply enter. And now I can begin to draw the line, and I'll take it up a distance of 40 feet. So I type 40 feet and enter. I'll take my line across, and I believe I have O track on. Let me come down here and check it. And yes, object snap tracking is on. So what I'll do is I'll just track this endpoint up to that intersection. So I'll click now. And now I'd like to type close, but if I click close, it's actually going to take me back to this point over here. And that's not what I want. I'll go ahead and click right here on this endpoint and then enter to terminate the command. That's my lot. That's my property. 40 feet by 125. Let me just go ahead and do a quick measure on that. And you can see 40 feet by 125. So I'm good there. I'll go ahead and tap the escape key now. What I'd like to do is represent the lines as property lines. I'm going to come over here to my properties panel in the home tab. And I'm going to click right here for the line types. I'm going to click on that drop down. And I'm going to click on other because I'd like to add a line type. And then I'm going to click load. And the line type that I want is down here, and it is the phantom line type. So I'll click on it and then click OK. It has now been added to my drawing file. I'll go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to window all 4 lines like this. And this is the implied window. Once all 4 are selected, I'll come over here to the properties panel, click on that drop down for the line type and select phantom. So it has been applied. And now if I zoom in, you'll see it's there, but it's the line type scale that needs to change. They're still highlighted. I still have my properties window open. I'll hover over that and I will change the line type scale. And as I suggested before, start with 12. Why 12? 12 inches to a foot. That's where I get that number from. Go ahead and enter. And you'll see how it does change a little bit. And maybe it doesn't change to a setting that you'd like. So go back to the properties and either double it or cut it in half. So I'm going to double it to 24 and enter. And I can see it changing, and it's changing in the direction that I'd like it to go, the line type scale. So now I'm going to take that and double it to 48. And that, for me, will work. If I tap the escape key, if I'm zoomed out where I am right now, I can see that this represents property lines. And a property line is a long line followed by 2 dashes, and then that repeats itself. Feel free, if you'd like, go ahead and select them again, go back to the properties, and double it again and see what you get. So double of 48, I believe, is 96. So I enter, and you can see how it changes. There is no right or wrong here. It's going to be based on seeing this as a printed drawing. I like it at 48. I'm going to leave it there, but you're more than welcome to change it to something else. That's my property. I'm going to tap the escape key and the grips go away. I'll proceed. Now I'd like to get my sidewalks in there, and the sidewalks are 6 feet away from my property. And I want to make sure that I draw my sidewalks. So here's what I'm going to do. Back to my site. I'm going to select that layer where I need to put my sidewalk lines onto, and it's the XSite layer. And then I'll start to draw 2 lines. So I'll type L, enter, and I'll draw a line from here straight down to that endpoint, and then over to this endpoint. And then right click, enter, terminates the command. And now, so that I do not get confused or pick the wrong line, I'm going to come up here to my layers and turn off the XSite property layer. And now all I see are these 2 lines, and it's easy for me to offset them. So I'll type O, enter. The distance is 6 feet, so I type 6 feet, enter. And I'll take the 2 lines and offset them away from my property, like that, and then enter. Now, the sidewalk going up is actually going to extend further, and I'll do that in just a second. And then over on the other side, I'm going to have the alley. So I'm just mindful of these things. I just think about it as I'm drawing. And I'll go back to my example, and I put the lines in there. Now I need to draw the arcs, and I have an arc there that's a 15-foot radius. I'll put that in. Oh, I should also offset the line 9 feet to show the parkway. So I'll go back to the AutoCAD drawing. I'll type O and enter. The distance now is going to be 9 feet. So I type that in and then enter. I'll pan and zoom into the area so I can focus on it, offsetting this line down 9 feet, and then offsetting this line over 9 feet, like that, and then enter. And then back to my example. I can see where that arc needs to begin, and I have that radius of 15 feet. So let me go ahead and put that in now. If you wanted, here's what you could do is come over here to the measure tools and just select distance. And you can measure from one endpoint to another, and you'll see there's the 15 feet. And then in this direction, also the 15 feet. I do need to put that arc in. So I'm going to come over here to my draw panel, go to the arc dropdown, and I look for the option that is going to suit me best. I could do center, start, end, because I don't really need to give it a radius. So let me try that one. Center, start, end like this. I'll click on it. So specifying the center point, I'll pick this point. And now start point of arc. And remember, I had said before that arcs are drawn in a counterclockwise direction. If you can remember that, great. And if not, that's okay. If you pick, let's say, for example, this endpoint down here, right? And it starts to draw the arc. And let me turn ortho off for a moment so you can see this. You see how it's going in the wrong direction? Notice how it says that I can hold down the control key to switch the direction. So I'm going to hold down my control key now, and now I can go in the other direction and go ahead and click on that endpoint. So that gets me the arc that I wanted. Back to my example, it's just a matter now of finishing off that corner. From here, there's a line that's going to extend over. So I'm going to type L, enter. So it's going to be from this endpoint over that way. And then the other line is here going down. Oh, and I have perpendicular turned on. I didn't realize that. But now it's picking the endpoint, so I'll take it. And then enter. And then I'll zoom out. This is the extent so far of my drawing. And now, just to take a look at it, I'll turn this property layer on, and there's my property. So good. Everything is moving in the right direction. The next thing to do using the example is offsetting 6 inches to get that curb in there. I'll go back to my drawing and I will offset 6 inches. And I'm going to zoom in right here like this. I'll go ahead and type O, enter. Specify 6 inches. And this time I'm only typing 6. I don't need to put the inches. If I leave it at 6, it defaults 2 inches. So I'll enter. And I'll offset the line, then the arc, and then the line. Right click enter to terminate. Looking at my example, I don't need to extend this too far, but it doesn't hurt to start drawing a little bit more of this site. I don't need to identify the other lots, just mine. So I'll go back to my drawing here and I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw a line. So I'll type L, enter, and then I'm going to zoom in right here and I'll start it at this point. And I'll simply take it straight up. I'll turn ortho on. I'll take it about that far. I don't need to give it a specific distance. If you want, you can just simply click right now. But if you're interested and you want to make it some exact whole number, you can do that too. I can either click, or I'm looking at the value and it says that my line here, the length would be somewhere around 127 feet and then some. So I'll simply type in 127 feet, enter, and then enter again. Either way is fine. My goal is just to extend that line further past my property. And now what I'm going to do is offset. So I type O, enter, a distance of 15 feet, enter. And I'd like to take this line over in that direction and then enter to terminate the command. And this represents the alley. I'm looking at the drawing and I can see that it's a matter of simply mirroring some information over to the other side. But before I do that, I'm going to extend my lines over here higher up. So let me pan a little bit and zoom in like this. I can either use grips or I can draw myself a line from here straight across like that, enter. And then I can use the extend command, which is EX and enter, and basically just use a fence like this, and then enter to terminate, and then take that line and simply delete it. Or let me undo that. I can practice my stretch command. So I'll go over to stretch in the modify panel. I need to select the objects, but as it says in the command line, select the objects to stretch by a crossing window or a crossing polygon. I'm going to use a crossing window, and I know that the crossing window is in effect when I pick from right to left. So I want to make sure I capture all of the endpoints here. So I will click in this empty space one time, and then I'm going to take it to the left, there's my crossing window. I click, and then I enter because I've selected all of my objects. And then I take this endpoint as my base point. I take it straight up. And now I'm going to use my tracking to track this endpoint over. And when they line up, I click. And I'm all set. And now I'm going to take this information and mirror it to the other side. Not that I need it, but I'm going to include it anyway, just in case. And it's also a good way to practice the commands. So now what I'd like to do is mirror that over. And I know that the mirror point is going to be somewhere in the middle here. And I showed you how to use the midpoint between 2 points before, and I'll do it one more time now. I'm going to type MI and enter. And I'm going to use an implied crossing window. So that means it needs to go from right to left. So I click here one time. It's going from right to left. And then I click. All of my objects are selected. I enter. And then I pan this over a little bit just to get myself into the right location here. And then shift right click. It opens up this menu. And I select midpoint between 2 points. And that midpoint is going to be between this point and this point. And I picked both of them. And now I just take my cursor either straight down or straight up. I'm moving it up and it's working out just fine. I'll go ahead and click. And the answer here is no, I do not want to erase the source object. So I click on no. And that is the site, or at least the portion that I will need to see for now. And now I can go ahead and turn on my ASite property layer. But what's happening is that I'm not quite seeing the lines. And that could be problematic. So here's something that I'd like to show you. I'm going to do my best to pick, and this is going to be a little tricky. I want to pick this line, so I click on it, and then I want to window this one. And then I want to window this one over here. And I have one more to select down here, but let me hold off on that for just a second because that can get a little tricky. Now that I have them selected, I'm going to right click and then hover over draw order and then click on bring to front. When I do that, I click and it takes the lines and it brings them in front or above or on top of the other lines. I changed the draw order here and now I can see them and that's better for me. And now I have one more line to select here and I'm going to try something. I'm going to see if I can lock the ASite layer. Yes, I'll click off of that now. And I will try to click on the line, but you notice how it's telling me it's locked. I'll go ahead and window this right here. And I'm windowing that area. And once I do that and I click, it's only picked one of the lines because the other one is on a locked layer. And now I can go ahead and right click and select draw order, or rather hover over it and indicate bring to front. So I click on it and it should bring that line to front. I don't know if it worked, even though I had the ASite layer locked. Let me go ahead and unlock that. And it looks like, nope, didn't do the trick. So now here's where I introduce something a little on the sophisticated side, if you don't mind. On your screen, go down to the 3 bars in the lower right-hand corner where it says customized, or rather customization. Click on customization. And then from the list of choices, have selection cycling checked. So I'm going to turn mine off and then I'm going to turn it on. And when I do that, I get an extra icon down here in my drawing aids. So have selection cycling turned on and then click off of it. And when you do that, it gives you the icon. And right now it's currently turned off, selection cycling. I'm going to turn it on. Once I do that, now I can come over here and hover, and you'll see the icon, that cursor changes ever so slightly. It's indicating to me that there are two objects there. When I click one time, I'm now prompted which one of the two objects would I like to select. The first line, which is on a layer, and the color of that layer is yellow, or the second line that's on a layer, and the color of that layer is magenta. And this is the one that I want. So I'll go ahead and click on that one. So it has only selected one of the two lines, and that's because I'm using selection cycling. Now with that one selected, I will go ahead and right click, draw order, hovering, and then clicking on bring to front. That brings the line forward. And now I can see my property lines. The next thing I'd like to do is bring in the trees. I'm going to right away switch over and make that layer the current layer, my landscape layer. So I'll click on that. And I already have my trees, but I can't remember if I made blocks out of them. Let me open up that drawing file. So I'll come over here to open. And there's my entourage. I'll go ahead and click on open. And looking at them, yes, it's a block reference. Block reference, that's great. I have two blocks in here. If I go to insert and I look at insert here, I have my sample tree and then my tree 01 for now. I just wanted to check them. And I'll go back to my drawing file. And I will go ahead and insert them here. Insert tab. I go to the insert dropdown, and then I click on blocks from libraries. From here, I go over to my libraries icon and I click on it. I'm going to open up my entourage drawing file. So I click on the file name and then open. And I look at my sample tree and my tree 01. And between the two, I think I like this trio 1 that I made. So I'm going to click on it one time and then bring it in and put it right here along the parkway on this side. So I'll give it a click. And I have the block in there. Before I continue, I'll close out of this window. There we go. Add more trees. Feel free to place more in there as you'd like. So here I go. I'm going to type CO for copy and enter. And I'd like to copy this block. So I click on it and then enter. And I simply am going to click down here. And I'm going to copy it over and I'm going to turn ortho off because I don't really need them to line up. So this one is going to be perhaps right here. And I'll drop another tree perhaps right over there. I'd like to put some in the front of my house. And now I see that it's going to snap to an endpoint. So here's where it's really, really helpful to come down to your object snaps and turn them off. And now with the object snaps turned off, I can hover. Well, looks like O track is still on, so I better turn that off as well. There we go. And now I will not snap to anything, and I'm not going to track anything either. And it makes it a lot easier to now place my trees. So I'll put one, say here, and I'll take another one up at this location. And that's going to be far enough for now. I eventually want to have some trees in my property as well, but I'm going to wait until I have my building in there and then I'll see about putting trees. That's all for now. I'm going to tap the escape key. And if I look at them, they all look the same. So I'm going to make some modifications here and I'm going to take advantage of my grips. Zooming in here, I'm going to pick this one first. And then I'm going to click on the grip point like that. And then I'm going to right click and rotate and just pick an arbitrary angle like this. And then I'm going to click on it again. And then I'm going to right click and scale it. And I can either scale it up or down. So I'm going to make it just a little smaller like that. Tap the escape key and continue. I'm going to this one now. I click on the block and then I select it. But this time, instead of right clicking, I'm going to tap my space bar. And when I tap the space bar, it toggles me through the options. So I've already tapped the space bar once. It's prompting me to move it. Tapping the space bar again, I can now rotate it, and I'll rotate it in a different direction like this. And I'll go back, clicking on that insertion point, and then I'm going to tap the space bar until I see the scale option at the command line. And now that I see scale, I'm going to make it just a little smaller like this. And then tap the escape key and continue. I'll come up here, same thing, pick the tree, click on the insertion point, and then use the space bar until I have the rotate option, and I'll rotate it here. Click on the insertion point again, tap the space bar to toggle you through the options. And now I'm going to pick or wait till I get to scale like that, and then scale it either up or down. It's your choice. I'll make this one a little smaller like that. Tap the escape key and then just take care of one more. This one here. Zooming in, selecting, clicking on that insertion point, tapping the space bar until I see the rotate option. I'll rotate it down this way, click on that insertion point again, tap the space bar until I have the scale option. And I'll scale this one down a bit also like that. And then tap the escape key and I'm all set. And notice it's the same symbol, but I was able to make these modifications and now they look slightly different, different sizes, different rotations. So it helps give it that organic look that we need. What I need to do now is externally reference the floor plan. I want to go back to the Home tab and I need to change the layer, and it should be layer 0. Anytime you are inserting external references, they should go on layer 0. Sometimes we create a layer and we call it the xref layer and we put the xrefs on there, but you don't need to do that. Layer 0 is a special layer for AutoCAD. That's the layer that we use to make our blocks. It's also the layer that we use to insert the xrefs. I'll go ahead and bring in my xref. If I type XR and enter, it's going to open up my window, but I already have it open here on the side. So I'm just going to hover over it and let it open up. And then I'll come over here to my icon to attach a DWG. I'll click on that. And I'm going to look for my floor plan. And once I find the floor plan, I click on it. And then I go ahead and click open. The reference type here needs to be an attachment. So make sure you turn on or you select that radio button, attachment. Then we go over to the scale. It is going to be a scale of 1:1, so there's no need to change anything there. The insertion point, yes, I do want to specify that on screen. Leave that box checked. For the path type, go ahead and set that to no path. We're not going to rotate it, so leave that alone. So I'll click OK. And notice how it's bringing in my floor plan, and it is using that insertion point, that 00 point. That's where I started the drawing file. And for now, I'm simply going to just click anywhere in the site. So right here, one click, and I have brought in my floor plan. The requirements are that the floor plan be at least 5 feet away from either the north or the south property lines. So this is the north property line, and then this one down here is the south. Type O and enter, and that's for offset. Type in 5 feet and enter. Select the line, offset this one in, select this line, and I have to pick, and it doesn't matter which one I pick, I'll just go ahead and pick the property line and offset that up like this. And then I will go ahead and offset the other two. I'll go ahead and pick this line here. I do want to pick the property line in this case, so I click on that line. But instead of 5 feet, I want to bring that in 20 feet and enter. And then I'll pick this property line back here. And I'll select that line. And I'd like to bring it in this direction, 20 feet. And then enter. As long as I'm within the parameters there, I'll be okay. So now I can go ahead and move my building. And I'm going to come down here, for example, and I'll go ahead and type M, enter. I'll select the floor plan, which is an image, enter. I want to pick that endpoint. I'm realizing now that I turned off my O snaps and my O tracking. Now's a good time to turn them back on. So I will turn on object snap and I'll turn on object tracking. By the way, if you notice down here, if I hover over the icons, you'll see that next to the name, there is an F and then a number next to it. So for object snaps, that's the F3 key. These are the function keys on your keyboard. Instead of clicking down here all the time, you can use the function keys on your keyboard to toggle object snaps on or off, to toggle object snap tracking on and off. You can tap the F11 key. And then for ortho, which is one that we use quite a bit, that one is the F8 key. I click on the icons down here because you can see me clicking on them and you know when I turn it on and off. But if I ever use the function keys, I'll make sure to let you know. That was a slight deviation, just pointing out the function keys. I went ahead and turned on object snap and the tracking. So now I go ahead and click on this endpoint. And I'd like to bring it down here and let it align. And in my case, it could go perpendicular. That's fine. I'll align it to this side. I'll give it one click and then I'll zoom out. And it looks like I have a bit of room over here. And now towards the front or back, you decide where you'd like to place it. If you'd like it to be closer to the front, then you simply type M, enter, select the xref, enter, pick a base point. I want to make sure I pick an endpoint. Okay, and then I take it over and I'll track this point down there and I'll take it straight up and click. So I can place my building there. If I want it really close to the front like that, that's fine. There's a lot of room towards the back over here. Or if you'd like to, go ahead and move it in the other direction. So I'm going to right click and repeat move. I'll pick my building, enter, and I'll pick this as my building corner on the right side, and I'll take it all the way back here and place it right there. The decks do not count as part of that building, but if you feel that it's a little too close to the alley there, then certainly you can take it and go ahead and move it so that the deck is 20 feet away from the back of the house like that, or the back of the property rather. Something like that. I'll let you think about it. Wherever you'd like to place it is fine. Once you have that location, go ahead and take those extra lines that you had drawn, select them, and simply delete them. Now I know that my building is within the parameters. And these parameters that I provided you, these are what we call setbacks. And I'm just introducing that as a concept. Don't worry about it. If you don't understand what that setback means, it's okay. As long as you keep your building 5 feet away from the south or the north part of the property line, and then make sure it's 20 feet away from either the west or the east. Now you can begin to add lines that represent the sidewalks that are leading up to your property. If you'd like to, you can also go back to the XSite layer and perhaps add a fence. What does a fence look like? Nothing more than a couple of lines, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches apart. That's how we would represent it. If, for example, you'd like maybe a fence back here, here's what you could do. Let's see, I already have a line drawn there. So if I just take that line and I offset it in, I'd say about 6 inches. So I'm going to type O, enter. And this is very arbitrary. Partly the reason I'm doing 6 inches is just so it's far enough away from the property so that I can visualize it. I'll type in 6 and enter. And I'll click here on this line and then click it over. And then I'll take that line, and this time I'll offset it over, say, 2 inches. So I type 2 and enter, and then enter again. And that represents my fence. And what I'd like to do now is actually trim it. So I'll come over here, I'll type TR, enter, and I'll trim this off, enter to terminate the command. Come down here, zoom in, type TR, enter, trim it right there, enter to terminate the command. I can turn the corner on that fence and bring it all the way across. I leave this in your hands, whatever you'd like to do. This is your choice to make. I do know that I want my sidewalk to lead me up to my house. So in my example, the way I put the stairs, I would then draw a line. It's on this XSite layer, and I draw a line. So I type L, enter, from this point here, and I bring it straight down. Perpendicular is fine. I click on it and enter, and then repeat the line command by simply entering. Pick this endpoint, take it down, let it go perpendicular like that, and then enter. I could have the sidewalk pointing here and just have my guests or myself come up along the sidewalk this way. Or I could change it so that my sidewalk is actually running the length of my house, and I would change the stairs. For example, let me just show you. If I type E, enter to erase, and I'll erase these 2 lines. All right, let's say my stairs are actually going in the other direction. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my xref, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to open that xref. When I open the xref, it takes me back to the original drawing file. Zoom in. I'm actually going to take these 2 lines, use an implied crossing window, delete them, and then I'm going to offset 12 inches. I'm going to take this line, 12 this way, and then 12 that way, enter. And then I'm going to type TR, enter, and then trim this. Now I change the orientation of my stairs. With that done, I'm going to zoom extents, Z, enter, E, enter. I'm going to save my file, and that's a Control S. And then I'm going back to my drawing, my site drawing. I receive a prompt in the lower right corner, and it says that the xref has been modified. I'm going to reload it. I don't need to compare the changes. I know what they are, so I'm going to turn that off, and I'm simply going to reload. And you see how the changes are now brought into this drawing. Why? Because this is an xref. It is the image of a drawing file inside of another drawing file, and it's updated the image for me. So I'll tap the escape key, and now I can draw a line, L, enter, from here all the way to the front. Let it go perpendicular, click on it, enter. And then I'll type CO for copy, and I'll copy this line, enter, from this endpoint to this endpoint, and then tap the escape key. So maybe that's what I'd like to do. Maybe I want to move the building a little bit more towards the front. And this is where you can take some of these liberties to make sure that nobody tries to come into my house from this side over here. I can either put a fence, or I can do this. I'll take this tree. I'm going to click on it here, and I'm going to use my space bar until I get to the move command. Once I see move on my command line, I'm going to type C for copy. So I type C because that's an option, and enter. I'm now making a copy of this tree, and I'm going to place it right here. Tap the escape key, and then I'm going to click on that tree one more time, pick that insertion point, use my space bar until I get to the scale option, and I'm going to scale this tree about that big. It actually had both of those selected. That's on me. Let me undo this. For some reason, I'm not sure how it happened, but that's okay. these two were selected. So I'm going to make sure that I just pick this one now. Now I pick that insertion point, use my space bar until I see the scale option, and then I'm going to scale it down about that big. And now that represents a shrub. And I can make copies of that and then change the rotation, maybe scale up or down. And this is how I can begin to lay out my site. And this is for presentation purposes. I want you to take artistic liberties. I want you to embellish. I want you to think about this property. How would you treat it? And where would you place the building? And how would you surround it with either fence, definitely the sidewalks. And then I would also encourage you to put some plantings around it.